Tfilas Asher. Even though Moshe Rabbeinu was rich, meaning he was rich not just physically, but the reason why he was rich physically was because he was rich spiritually. He had all the highest, most levels. Therefore, he was able to draw down that even the levels that were lacking, just like the person that the king, that there was a Medina Chareva, a country that was destroyed, and he asked the king that he should rebuild it. Same thing, Moshe Rabbeinu wanted that Knesset Yisrael, Malchus, the Shorish Neshamas Yisrael, should be rebuilt. But then we explained why is it a tefillah? We identified it that Moshe Rabbeinu, being the level of Ashir, he has to do with that level from which it becomes rebuilt. That level to become an everlasting rebuilding needs to be totally higher than the Seder Talshus, higher than Mamale, higher than Soviv, higher even than the Shodish from Mamale Soviv, from the level of Hashem's very essence. If he's on that level of Hashem's very essence and he's drawing down from that level, why is it called a tefillah? Tefillah means that you're standing beneath and you're drawing it down. So we explained that since the entire world was set up in such a way that there has to be the avodas ha'adam, therefore Moshe Rabbeinu did it in a way of tefillah, even though he could draw it down a way of going from above to below. Instead, he did it in a way of tefillah because it had to be through avodas hamata, which is the entire purpose of the world, is to be the avodas hamata. And that's why it was in a way of tefillah, that he was drawing down this oir that's higher than say the Rishtalshus, the oir that was leinaga by Atzimtzum, the etzem oir, Atzim's itself, he drew down through tefillah, through avodas hamata. Now the Rebbe is going to bring in, let's say for now, a side point, elaborating on the Maimer that it speaks over there of the Rebbe Rashab, and that Maimer the Rebbe Rashab, we see an interesting association between the three levels that we were talking about. There's Mal Kalam, the Soiv Kalam, and there's the Etzem that's higher than everything. The Rebbe Rashab connects it with the three levels of love, and the Rebbe is going to explore that about which is like of the two, is one evolved from the other? How does that work with each other? And what's the point of the mind, as we'll see inside. Ice test line 12, page Yud Zayin. Well, Pizesh Levai, and according to this, we can explain because of my mind, what it says in the mind in the Begiluim Shalom Yesh Gimel Madreges, then the revelations from above. There's three levels, Bechlolos in general. There's Mamal Kalam, the level that fills the worlds, that comes inside the worlds. In a Pnimius, it's an oir that's mugable. Soiv Kalam, there's a level that encompasses the world, surrounds the worlds, transcends the world. Bleakvul, Va'atzmas Oir Sof Shalamaylo and Malav Soiv, and there's the essence of the Eibishter beyond the Mal Kalam and Soiv Kalam. But Gimel Madreges Eila, these three levels, Hem Gimel Avas Pasik. Those are the three loves that are in the pasuk. It says you should love him with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. So these are the three loves. They correspond to these three levels as he's about to explain. In the love that with all your heart, that's the level of the oil that fills the world. Since the life force of vitality of the oil of Mamalaklam is enclosed in the Nevroim in an internalized fashion, therefore, through meditation, through thinking into what's going on around me, so even the animal soul can feel this, can be aware of this, because even the animal soul knows that it's alive. And the more you think about it, how this life force comes from the Eibishter, so the Nefesh Haba'am is that in tune with the world and its life can appreciate this. Therefore, the love is with all your heart. As we know, the Chazal say, why say B'chol Avavcha with two vases instead of B'chol Libcha? It comes to hint that the love is with both your Yitzarim, your Yetzer Tov, your Yetzer Hara, your Nefesh Elokis, your Nefesh Haba'amis. And this is because it's a love of Mamal Kalam, so Nefesh Abamis can relate to it as well. Then there's the Ava B'chol Nafshchom, the love that's with all your soul. That's the level that transcends and encompasses the world. The Kiva Shoyra Soviv Olamaylam, Mislapshes the Boilum, since the light of Soviv Kalam is beyond becoming enclosed in the world. Therefore, through being felt in the Eirin Saf, the wonder of the Eirin Saf, the level of Soviv Kalam, he feels how it's aloof and beyond, and it's like totally above him. So therefore, Avos is Havayi Ba'ifim the Mesiris Nefesh. That appreciation of that which transcends the world, it evokes by the person a complete wanting to leave the world behind, self-sacrifice. B'chol nafshecha, as the Chazal explained, what does it mean with all your soul? Afilu noitlas nafshecha. Even if he takes your life, he wants to leave who he is and totally become part of the Eirin Sof. That's Mesiris Nefesh. But it's not something that Nefesh Bahamis can relate to. This love is only in the godly soul. The type of comprehension that the person recognizes and feels. Only when one recognizes and has a feeling for something, will that understanding and meditation bring him to a love, in the wonderness and in the aloofness of the infinite light of Hashem. It can only be in the godly soul that it's rooted in Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, the level of Soiv. In other words, like this, the Nefesh Bahamis can learn about Soiv, but it can't relate to it. And it's important for the transition from intellect to emotions that needs to be able to relate to it. The terms that he uses over here is Hakara V'Hargosha, that he has a recognition, he has a feeling for it. So the Nefesh Bahamis might have been sitting in by a Shir Chassidus where they talk about Soiviv and logically and rationally understands it, but he cannot relate to it. And therefore, it's not going to bring the Nefesh Bahamis to have a love of Hashem based on the knowledge of Soiv. The love of Hashem that Nefesh Bahamis can relate to is a love that's based on the Malachim. Only the Nefesh Elokis, that the Nefesh Elokis' source is from Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, from the level of Soiv Kalam. Nefesh Elokis can appreciate, can relate to, can have a Hakara V'Hargosha in the level of Soiv Kalam, because it has a Hakara V'Hargosha, which is that transition from intellect to emotions. It's able to have a love that connects and is about going out of one's existence because of his appreciation of Sof. That's the second level of love in Krishna. The love with all your might. It's Hashem's infinite essence that's beyond even Sof Kalam. Because the true idea of being without boundaries is Hashem's essence. Even though we mentioned Soiv Kalam is Bligvul, but that's still not the true idea of Bligvul. The light of Soiv Kalam has some type of form, has some type of boundary, because after all, it's relating to the world. It's Soiv Kalam. True, it's relating in a negative, but it's relating to the world. Therefore, the love that comes through the revelation of Hashem's very essence is with all your might, without a boundary. It has no limitation to it, because that's the true meaning of B'chol Moedecha, that it has no boundaries. So to be able to reach a love that has no boundaries whatsoever, because we know Ma'od is that superlative going on something above and beyond. When can a person attain that level of love that is completely believable? It's when he taps into that which is completely believable, the level of Hashem's essence. So that's what the Rebbe Rashab explains in that Maimer, the connection between the three loves of Krishna, with the three levels of Mamale, Soiviv, and Atzmus. So going on to line 10, the Gimel Avos L'Gil Madregas. So now, after the Rebbe Rashab explains the association between the three levels of love to the three levels in Alakulas, Messiah, he concludes from this, the association between the three levels and the three loves, we can understand the idea of the three levels. And now, from this we can understand the Mamala is enclosed in the world. The and Soiviv is beyond becoming enclosed. But still has association with the world. And the essence of Hashem's infinite being is not at all within the category of worlds whatsoever. So now, the Rebbe is going to ask something about the juxtaposition, the way the mimer puts together these two topics, which is like dependent upon which, the three levels and the three loves. Let's see it inside, line 16. When you understand the explanation and in the connection between the three loves with the three levels of above, it's seemingly after we understand what the three levels are, we understand what Memali Kalam is, we understand what Soib Kalam is, we understand what Asmas is. Then, once we understand what those three levels are, we can understand and apply it to the three loves. But that's not the way the Rebbe Rashab words it in the Maimon. And about Maimon Mashmam, way for the matters in the Maimon, it seems to indicate the Indians Elohim Gimel Abs. This idea that these three levels correspond to the three loves. Moisef Bir Begimel Amadregas. They add explanation in the three levels. How do we truly understand the three levels of Mamali, Soiviv, and Atzmus? It's by understanding the three loves. Seemingly, it should be the other way around. It should be that you have the three levels, and they impact and they cause the three loves. Not the other way around, that from the three loves, we understand the level of the three levels. So the Rebbe is going to explain, based on what we explained earlier, about the importance of the avoida down here below, and how the whole Seder Ishtalshlus was put into being, and how the whole world and everything in the creation, including all the Giluyim of the highest levels, were only put into being because of our avoida. Based on this, so therefore the true idea of these three levels is because of the three loves, because the three loves are dependent upon, are going to be connected to them. That's what gives them their true value and importance and purpose. Let's see it inside, line 21. We could say one of the explanations in that type of association that the Rebbe Rashab says in the Maimer, the reason why in the highest realm there's these three levels, that in these three levels is how all the revelations of Seder Ishtalshus is divided in general into these three levels. Because all the revelations of above are for the sake of a person's service. Since in the love of Hashem, which the love of Hashem is the primary core of a person's avodah. As the Zohar says, there's no service like the service of love. So since in the service of the person, in the love of Hashem, Yeshnam Gimel Avos, there's three loves. With all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Lachen klol is kol hagiluim the lamaylo nechlakim legimul madreges mamalo besoive v'arnisof shalomaylo besoive shebehasim legimul avos anal. Therefore, all the levels and all the general revelations of above are divided into the three levels of Memala and Soiviv, and the infinite light of Hashem that's higher than Soiviv, that corresponds to these three loves. So that's why we're saying that from the three loves we'll understand them. How does one understand something clearly and understand and thoroughly? One needs to go to the core. One needs to go to its root. One needs to go to its foundation. So therefore, to really appreciate the three levels above, one needs to go to the three loves, because that's the whole reason why the three levels of Seder Ishtalshus are there, because of the three loves. Therefore, top of page test. The beginning of the explanation, the mind of the three levels of above, is how they pertain to the three loves. This is the root and the cause for the fact that the three levels came down. This is also similar to what we see in different Ma'amarim, for example. Also in the Basel Gani and the Frierdiker Rebbe, that it says the reason why we have 613 limbs and organs, because the nefesh has 613 different levels. And then that comes because of the 613 different levels that are above. There's a Ramachim for Desire, etc., etc. And from that was an ishtalshus that the soul has and the body has. But all of that, why was that? Because in truth, we have Taryag mitzvahs down here. Because we have 613 mitzvahs down here. So everything in Seder Ishtalshus came down that type of way, to be able to affect and bring about the 613 mitzvahs. In a similar vein, we're saying over here about the loves. If you really want to understand the three loves of Seder Ishtalshus, we need to approach it from the three loves, because the whole reason why there are the three levels of Seder Ishtalshus is to be able to have these three loves, and therefore we can only understand it by understanding the three loves. Any questions before we go on? Yud, page Yutes, line 4. Shloimar datam b'pnimius inyan maze shamshachas v'gil gimel inyan dermal b'soy v'atz v'soy v'soy. Why they gimel ha'avas b'chol v'av chol nachal chol meidach. We could say the reason by looking at it more in a deeper fashion, in the inner approach. Why is the drawing down, the revelation of these three aspects of Imal, Yisayv, and Atzmus is through the three loves of with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. What was the purpose in all the revelations? Why did Hashem put into Seder Ishtalshus these things? Seder Ishtalshus only has one purpose: to create the world and to give chayas to the world and to bring extra stuff into the world. Just like we said earlier in the Maimer, that the way the world was created was in such a way that everything in it should become repaired through a person, even through even physical things, even stuff like cooking food so it should be able to be ready, grinding wheat so you should be able to eat it. Like we said, why did Hashem set it up that way? So we mentioned before also because through this a person will be a partner with the Eibushter creation. So too it's concerning the revelations of above. The way they came down, the way they were drawn down was in such a way that their revelation should be through the service of a person, not just the physical creation of the world, but everything that came for the creation of the world. Why is that so? Because Hashem wanted us to partner with Him, not just in the physical world. Hashem wanted us to partner with Him in all the levels that were brought into being for the sake of this physical world. So that the partnership of the person to the Eibushter in the creation should be not only in the world itself, also in the revelations of above. That through those revelations of above was the creation of the world. So Hashem wanted us to partner not just in the physical creation, but everything that had to do with the creation, including the whole Seder Ishtalshus, including all these three levels that were brought into being for the sake of creation. Since the main service of a person is the love of the Eibishter, there is no avodah like the avodah of love, like we mentioned before. Therefore, the revelation of these three levels. That in these three levels are included all matters of above. Through the three loves, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Through those matters of above are drawn down and revealed through the person's service. So then, like the Rebbe often brings about, so then it becomes an elevation in it so much higher than they were on their own, because now it's the purpose that they're being fulfilled, that the purpose was a person should do it through avodah. So then it causes their purpose to be fulfilled. So now we go back to what we were explaining before, why it was necessary that even though Moshe could have just imparted these great levels to Malchus and to Knesset Yisrael and to the Yid because of his high shaydish, but it was necessary to be in the way of tefillah. That the drawing down the revelation of the essence of the Eirus that's higher than so. That Moshe drew down in Malchus couldn't just be because he was rich and had it on his own, but it had to be that tefillah dafka had to be specifically through tefillah. Tefillah Moshe, Agam the Kibush Moshe Das El Shemekabel Ma'at Atzmus Eirus of Shalom Ma'alim Esoiv. Though Moshe Rabbeinu is the upper level of Das that he receives from Atik, the essence of the Eirus of that's higher in the Soiv Kalam, and therefore he could have just brought it down without tefillah. He could have brought down this light from above to below without any type of avodah. Page Chaf, because he still not chose to do it through tefillah, through avodah. Through Dam Shach which comes through tefillah, the avodah of a person, but they're and away from below to above. So now it's fulfilled the purpose and the intention for which the entire light came into being in the first place. By Dezeh, through that, when it fulfills its purpose, so this infinite light, even and this level of the Atik and levels higher than Soivim, now gets even a higher elevation. And if you say that, in the Bligvul itself becomes added. That the infinite nature of this light is not just out of its natural state. The essence of the light that has no possibility for constriction and a leaving of the light, but rather it has the essence of the light the way it is from the perspective of Hashem's very essence. In other words, not just that it's Etzem Ha'or, but it's Atzmus itself, Atzmus, Hashem's very essence. Therefore, therefore, Malchus being built up, Malchus being added, that happens through the light, the way the tefillah of Moshe draws it down, binyan adiyad, because it's not just a binyan adiyad because it's coming from Etzem Ha'or, but it's coming from Hashem's very essence. So let's touch on a very interesting question that he asks over here. Practically speaking, how does Moshe have an idea of tefillah? By him, it's not lacking. How can he be in a state of tefillah? So let's go to Yud Aleph, line 11. We need an explanation. The ascent that occurs in the revelations of above through the service of a person who is primarily, like we said before, when they are being drawn down, and when the revelation comes about through the service. So a person, like we said throughout the whole previous few pages, the fact that Tfilos Moshe was brought down, this revelation, is only concerning Knesset Yisrael. Either Knesset Yisrael Kipshutoi, Yidden, that they are lacking, Begam Sfiras Amalchus, and also Sfiras Amalchus that's lacking. But concerning Moshe himself, it's not possible to say that his drawing down his revelation was through his davening. Moshe himself was rich. The Inyan Ha'ashir, who Shemeyirim Atzlei Begil Kol Yiluyim, like we mentioned earlier, what's the idea of riches by Moshe Rabbeinu spiritually? That all the possible revelations were shining by him. Even the revelation of Hashem's very essence, the Etzem Ha'or, that's totally beyond any connection with the worlds, beyond Saivavim. The elevation and the increase that occurs in the light through the tefillah of Moshe is only seemingly in comparison to others and not in comparison to Moshe Rabbeinu himself. So the question is, how can you call it tefillah of Moshe? In Moshe, it wasn't a level of tefillah. It wasn't anything that he was doing. There was no avodah. There was no something coming from him. So here the Rebbe is going to say an amazing word. Moshe Rabbeinu so identifies with the Yidden that even though he has it, their lack is his lack. Yes, we could say the explanation. This is line 25. The since Moshe Rabbeinu is the shepherd of the Jewish people, therefore, when something's lacking amongst the Yidden, it's as if the matter is lacking by him. The noise was in addition to the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu's suffering because the Jewish people were lacking was a very powerful suffering, as if he himself was missing it. Also, the lacking that the Yidden were lacking wasn't just that they felt their pain, but it wasn't his deficiency. He himself had that deficiency. He was lacking because of it. How come? How was he lacking? Because in truth, Moshe and the Yidden are entirely one. This we have in this week's parsha. Rashi says, "We'll show Rashi Moshe Yisrael." We learned this in this week's parsha that Moshe is Yidden, Yisrael, and Moshe and the Yidden are Moshe Rabbeinu. Top of page Chafal. Therefore, though Moshe Rabbeinu was rich, and all the godly revelations shown in him, still and all. Since the Yidden were lacking the revelation, only through avodah, the tefillah of Moshe Rabbeinu, came about the revelation in regards to them. So therefore, also in comparison to Moshe, he now had this revelation. He now had something new because of his davening. The fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was a shepherd of the Yidden, that was his core true being. It wasn't something additional to him. This was his primary being. All his qualities, including also the fact that he was rich spiritually. The higher level of das that receives from Atik. It's considered ancillary. It's considered external in comparison to the fact that he was the shepherd of the Yidden. According to this, even more understood. How much through the davening he got something new through the davening. Though even before his davening, because of his level of riches, that he was that high level of das. It's shown by him all these revelations, but where did it shine? It didn't touch him internally. The fact that it's shown by him all the revelations also prior to this, because of his riches, that's his external aspect. Concerning his inner aspect, the fact that he's the shepherd of the Eden, that revelation that it was part of his very being, that only came about when he did it out of davening, that he needed it because he was the shepherd of the Eden. Therefore, that we said earlier, that since the whole Seder Ishtalshlus awaits the avoid of the Yid, and the avoid of the Yid makes this elevation of above in a greater way, so that's not, and that's through the avoid of davening. Moshe, it's also through concerning Moshe and Moshe Rabbeinu's davening that he accomplishes. And in the end of the Maimer, he's going to apply this, how this is concerning the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Alter Rebbe, which we started off earlier and said that by the Alter Rebbe, he actually said this capital and so on when he was the day of his Yutas Kislev. Any questions?